Welcome to this Premium Executive Explainer. I'm stepping in as your senior mentor today, and look, whether you're gearing up for your very first company secretary interview or you're aiming to command a senior spot at a listed entity, an NBFC, or a major manufacturing corporation, this masterclass is built specifically for you. We're going to completely shift your mindset from road compliance to high-level strategic governance. So let's dive right in.
Here's our agenda for today's session. First, we'll define the modern governance professional. Second, we'll break down the 4 pillars of practice. Third, we're looking at your role as the ultimate stakeholder bridge. Fourth, we'll uncover exactly what interviewers expect from you. And finally, we'll wrap up with the golden rule of preparation.
All right, Section 1, the modern governance professional. Let's kick things off by just completely tossing out those old assumptions and defining the true elevated reality of what it means to be a modern key managerial personnel. Because today, any successful company, regardless of its size, absolutely requires an airtight governance framework. Think about this specific phrase for a second. Conscience keeper. You really aren't just a walking legal reference book. Every single business decision a company makes carries massive legal, financial, and regulatory weight. And the board, well, they rely on you as that conscience keeper. It's your job to balance their aggressive business objectives with a really unyielding ethical framework. Whether they're planning to raise capital, appoint new directors, or respond to regulatory notices, you're the one in the room ensuring it is done exactly right.
There is a massive paradigm shift happening in our profession right now. We really need to contrast the outdated perception of just paper pushing, doing mere statutory filings and updating secretarial records with what today's mandate actually is. Under the Companies Act, you are key managerial personnel. You're part of the senior management team. That means you are tasked with managing risk, shaping regulatory strategy, and crucially, protecting investor confidence. Regulators, shareholders, auditors, they're all relying on your accurate legal guidance.
Moving on to Section 2, the 4 pillars of practice. To truly master this profession and project real authority in the boardroom, you've got to build your expertise on 4 fundamental pillars. These 4 pillars, governance, compliance, risk, and strategy, they provide a comprehensive structure for exactly how a governance professional delivers tangible, high-level value to any organization. Honestly, they are what separate an amateur from a true executive. Let's break them down.
First up is governance. This pillar requires you to flawlessly facilitate the functioning of the board of directors, the board committees, and the shareholders. It's all about ensuring responsible decision-making. We're talking everything from preparing agenda papers to recording minutes and actually monitoring the implementation of those board decisions. Governance is literally the bedrock of sustainable business. Companies with strong governance just naturally enjoy higher market credibility and much better regulatory relationships.
Your second pillar is compliance. This means maintaining absolute command over a really vast regulatory landscape. Depending on your business, you're juggling the Companies Act, SEBI, RBI directions, FEMA provisions, plus labor, taxation, and environmental laws. An efficient compliance management system is your absolute shield. It is what protects the company from severe penalties, existential litigation, and catastrophic reputational damage.
Now here's the crucial thing to remember. Compliance failures rarely stay isolated as just legal issues. And that brings us to your third pillar, risk management. A missed filing, a delayed disclosure, or even just weak internal controls can directly lead to financial loss and severely damage investor confidence. Your job is to identify these compliance risks and resolve them way before they escalate into actual business problems, which means maintaining strict calendars and conducting regular periodic reviews.
The 4th pillar, strategic advisory, demands that you translate all those complex legalities into highly practical business solutions. Listen, senior management isn't looking for someone to just recite the law at them. Whenever a business proposal is on the table, they're essentially asking you 3 critical questions. Is this legally permissible? What approvals do we need? And how can we implement it efficiently? Answering those 3 questions, that is what distinguishes a true governance professional from a clerk.
All right, Section 3, the ultimate stakeholder bridge. Having a brilliant legal mind is fantastic, but it's completely useless if you can't communicate, which brings us to your role as the central hub of the corporate ecosystem.
You are constantly bridging the gap between a massive array of critical stakeholders. We're talking independent directors, stock exchanges, auditors, government authorities, you name it. Because of this, your communication skills are absolutely paramount. You really are the ultimate stakeholder bridge. Being able to explain dense, incredibly complex legal provisions in simple, clear executive language, that is just as important as your technical knowledge itself. Which brings us to Section 4, what interviewers really want. Let's translate all this high-level operational knowledge directly into practical strategies for acing those senior-level interviews, because a lot of candidates assume interviews are just memory tests of the Companies Act, and they couldn't be more wrong. Senior interviewers are actually evaluating a very specific blend of skills. Yes, of course, you need technical knowledge, but you also need practical exposure and a highly professional attitude. They want to see exactly how you handle yourself under pressure. They're looking at your decision-making capability, your time management, and your overall leadership potential.
The fatal mistake most candidates make is stopping at the theory. Merely quoting sections of the Companies Act? That is a theoretical failure. Practical success means proving you know exactly how to execute the law in actual corporate reality. Interviewers want to know the how. How do you monitor compliance? How do you coordinate between departments? And how do you identify risks before critical deadlines slip through the cracks?
For example, let's say you're asked about board meetings in an interview. Please don't just quote the provision. You need to confidently walk the interviewer through the exact practical steps of execution. Explain how you collect agenda items, how you prepare the notes, obtain the necessary approvals, circulate the papers, ensure the quorum is actually present, accurately record the minutes, and crucially, how you follow up on the implementation of those decisions. This emphasis on practical application is exactly what lands the job.
When you deliver your answers with that kind of structural clarity, you're proving you possess the qualities of excellence expected of true key managerial personnel. Interviewers are constantly assessing your integrity, your professional ethics, your attention to detail, and your absolute commitment to confidentiality. And since laws change all the time, they also want to see a habit of continuous learning. Someone who reads regulatory updates and analytically assesses their impact on business operations. Finally, Section 5, the Golden Rule of Preparation. As we wrap up this masterclass, I want to leave you with one definitive, permanent framework to guide your continuous learning and your future interview prep.
Please, do not study laws just to memorize sections. Whenever you read a legal provision, get into the habit of asking yourself 4 critical questions. Why does this provision exist? Who is responsible for implementing it? What are the exact practical steps required for compliance? And what are the consequences of non-compliance? If you build this habit, your answers will naturally become more practical, highly structured, and super impressive. You'll instantly shift your mindset from a student memorizing theory to a strategic leader ready to safeguard the reputation of an entire organization. So here's my final question for you to chew on before your next interview or board meeting. Are you showing up merely to record the minutes, or are you stepping into that room to guide the very conscience of the company? Thanks for joining this explainer.